And now, from Pensacola, Florida, it's Within Reason with Bob Kerrigan and Bill Rankin.
Welcome to Within Reason, my associate and colleague.
That's right.
You want to tell them who you are?
The threats. I'm Bill Rankin.
Bill Rankin, yeah.
We're still here despite everything we hear.
Yeah, does it? Bob Kerrigan joining with Bill on Within Reason, where we discuss local issues and offer our perspectives, which is generally trying to look at both sides of issues. We have a number of things we're going to talk about tonight, and let me just give you a highlight of a few things. We're going to talk about editorial in the News Journal
I love that.
about car care, which is very, very important to all of you who might be, you can ignore your children and other responsibilities, but according to this editorial, you want to be sure and take care of your car. The governor's.
Well, this is you want to talk about it now?
Yeah,
this is great. This is an editorial, and it's a great editorial. Yeah. Apparently, it's the governor declared it Car Care Week or Car Care Month or something, and how important it is to check up on your car and take care of your car and change the oil and the wiper blades and whatever you need to change. Yeah. And the Car Care Council, I didn't know there was one, came out and said, we're so happy that the governor reminded people of this important thing because they wouldn't change their oil and we wouldn't make as much money. Yeah. And then it turns out in this election year, they handed the governor some cash, which is the way advertising is done.
What's wrong with that? That's in the time-honored tradition of the Republican Party. Cash, cash talks.
The lesson you draw from that, that doesn't mean the government is for sale, but you can rent it.
You can rent the government.
So I'd like the governor to say, check in with your lawyer. Maybe you've got some outstanding warrants. Maybe your will has some people in there you hate.
What a good idea.
Just go down to your lawyer, hand your lawyer some cash. Then the lawyer could take a little bit of that cash and give it to the governor. And who's hurt? Everybody's happy. And
it would promote a sense of civic responsibility.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about more of that in terms of Mr. Maygarden, who's accused us all of being out of shape and overweight and a few other things.
I don't see what's wrong with that. Aren't there some statistics that say our county tends to be somewhat less healthy?
We'll get to that in a minute. I want to go back to car care for a second.
Okay.
I mean, let me tell you what happened to me this 2 weeks ago. I was in Tallahassee, and I was getting my oil changed at a oil place.
Yeah,
I won't name the place, okay?
But one of those quickie drive-in.
So I'm in the waiting room and waiting, and there's a woman in there with a little kid and by herself, and so the attendant guy comes in, and he's got a filter in his hand, and he said, we've checked your air filter, and this is the kind of thing you want to make sure is clean. I looked at it, looked clean to me. I mean, mine are so bad half the time I can't, I got to shake the dirt out. But anyway, so he said, and this is the classic, and the manufacturer recommends literally changing every fluid in the car, including the transmission fluid, the rear end differential, and the oil, grease, the fittings, and I mean, it's like, listen, if the manufacturer recommend that, why don't they put it in the manual? Yeah. It's not in your car manual. Yeah. It's only the lube people know about this.
You notice the little thing they put on the window? They want you to change your oil every 3,000 miles.
3,000 miles?
Well, that's not what the manufacturers recommend for new cars. The service intervals are either controlled by a computer. They're 7,500 miles now. Cars are cleaner, and they don't need to change their oil.
They don't need to change the oil. In fact, they had New York cabs, didn't they, for years?
Yes. And Consumers Reports did this. Yeah.
Yes, and those cabs didn't have their oil changed.
They ran forever, and they did fine.
So when the guy went out, she said, well, okay, let me think of something. I said, listen, don't quote me, okay, but don't buy any of that stuff. I said, that filter's fine. You don't need any of that. Tell me you don't want any of it. Just tell me. And I sat down and the guy came back. She said, I decided I don't want to get anything, which I felt quite good about, actually, because they're just taking advantage of her, okay? You know, I'm taking advantage of somebody who didn't know. I mean, you want to be like the governor. You want to take care of your car, but you don't want the car to put you in bankruptcy.
If you've got teenage children, don't put them in your car and send them out for an oil change, because they will sell them everything. They'll sell them everything. This fan belt looks a little bad. They've got all this crap that they want to sell them. Yeah. I finally, before you go, promise you're just there for an oil change. If they say we can see the air through your tires, they're so thin, or this car's not going to make it home, whatever they say thank you, I'm out of here, because that is not good for the consumer.
Let's go back. Is long care next? That's the other great editorial in the News Journal. So we have one of the biggest problems in this state is foster care. Huge problem. Yeah. But the governor seems to be more focused on getting the cars repaired. And I just wonder if we don't have our priorities a little...
I mean, the governments always do ceremonial and frivolous things. You know, the Congress never gets a budget out on time, but they declare National Pickle Week. You know, and they name post offices.
Don't we have bigger problems, though?
Well, yeah, we do.
Car care.
But see, the reason they don't get the budget out isn't because they're too busy with National Pickle Week. It's just other stuff. But it's politically better for them just to not do it.
But this is where you're vulnerable. You are really vulnerable here, because Bill's cars are immaculate. You can't ever get in his car. Doesn't look like just came off the showroom floor. So you are kind of impressed with this car care thing.
Yes.
Aren't you?
I do.
Well, most of us are thinking about more substantive things in our life, but you're
It's kind of silly.
Yeah, you
like the time I probably spent 10 hours researching tires to see which tires I wanted to put on my car.
There's nothing wrong with that, making an informed buyer.
Well, not the time I spent on it. Okay, probably wasn't.
But you actually clean parts of your car with a toothbrush.
I have done.
Yes. So this car is kind of good for you then.
Well, I don't need that editorial, you know. Yeah. Well, but I appreciate the governor helping me out with car care tips. I mean, I didn't know he'd had expertise in that. And
how embarrassing is that?
But it's the kind of stuff
for Republicans
do.
It's not that embarrassing.
I mean, politicians, they put on silly hats and they kiss babies and they. They cut the ribbon on
but listen, silly hats and kissing babies is not taking political contributions to tell people to take care of their car. Yeah. That's a little bit different. Yeah. You kiss a baby, you don't get anything but maybe a baby kiss.
But in the grand scheme of political flim-flammery, this is pretty mild.
It's pretty mild. Okay, so we highly recommend that. And right above it is we are a great admirer, I think both of us are, of Andy Marlette and his
cartoons.
His cartoons.
Not necessarily his editorials.
No, well, not necessarily his editorials, but we can't agree with everybody about everything, but his cartoons are stellar.
They're good.
It says, cheers to government regulation, and has a great big fat Republican elephant with big beer, and it says campaign cash in one hand, and the brewery bill in the other, and Florida GOP sign, and here's a couple of rednecks with beer cans saying, told you, he gets drunk on that stuff and starts acting like a liberal.
That's right.
Government regulation. Oh, the beer people, they love government regulation. The liquor industry, they are so in bed with the government regulators that's it's almost like there's some pregnancy things that can come out of this. I mean, these people are way too involved with each other.
Marco Rubio is for less regulation. Marco Rubio is a free market guy. Capitalism, laissez-faire capitalism.
He talks the talk.
But when they talked about changing the terrible sugar quotas, he said, oh, that would cost jobs in Florida. We can't do that.
Oh, yeah, it's always that.
So it's, in other words, they're giving him some cash.
Did you see that note from Amazon that they're going to start charging sales tax?
Yeah, in Florida, because they're going to have a facility in Florida.
Because the warehouse in Florida. And it's in Tampa, isn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Tampa or Orlando.
We tried to get them here. Do you know that?
That'd be great.
Do you know that the head guy with Amazon,
Jeff
Bezos, went to Workman Middle School?
I did not know that.
Did not know that. So some people tried to talk him into old time's sake getting a warehouse here, but it wasn't strategically located. They were very courteous about it, but it wasn't a good business decision for him. But isn't that interesting? He went
He's a bright business guy. And you know what? And I buy from Amazon all the time.
Well, we all do. Most people do, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and paying the sales tax at the point of sale, that's okay.
It helps our state.
Yeah,
it helps.
it's
fund,
okay.
It helps fund education.
Listen,
helps fund
our state doesn't whack our incomes.
No.
Like a lot of states.
No.
And I don't mind paying sales tax.
I don't either. And I think it's a sense of fairness, competing with local businesses. It's like, no, wait, this local guy is paying property taxes. He's paying a woman paying these taxes, employing people, and he's got to collect sales tax. And yet, Amazon can ship it to your front door and they don't pay sales tax.
Right.
Like,
and people go into stores and take pictures of what they want, and then you can send that to Amazon, and then you get free shipping and no sales tax.
You know, it reminds me of what Walmart did to virtually every small community in the country. You know, when they started exploding with these stores, they just wiped out local businesses because they could sell these at prices.
That's capitalism.
Of course, it's
the
beautiful.
people who don't like Walmart don't understand. That's keeping inflation down. I mean, if you can sell a product cheaper.
But people are penny wise and dollar foolish. Oh, I can save $5 on a tire. Wait just a second. The local business person is employing people. They're investing in the community. They're risk takers, and we're going to save $5.
Walmart is in the community. They're hiring local people. They don't bring all the Walmart employees in from Bentonville, Arkansas.
No, but they don't pay them enough. You know that.
Do they pay them? How do you know they pay them more than the local people? Why should they pay them more than the free market mandates? That's what keeps our prices low. What are you, a protectionist all of a sudden?
No, I just think that we should have the big picture in mind, that just because it's the cheapest to buy the product from somebody doesn't mean that it's in our best interest as a community.
Now, see, this is the way the Democrats think. People want to do business with Walmart, and Walmart wants to do business with these people. These people want to do this. The Democrats want to come in and say, no, we've got the big picture, so we're going to force you to pay more, and we'll get some of the money or something. Hey, if they can sell it to you cheaper, people are going to buy it cheaper. And capitalism is creative destruction. Businesses get destroyed all the time. Maybe the people in little businesses go on to invent something else. All
right, speaking of creative destruction.
If you're not efficient, somebody's going to undersell you.
I like that theory. Here's the problem. These so-called free market competitors get every stinking government benefit they can get, do every political maneuver they can get, and we have it going on locally, inside deals, sweetheart leases.
Well, we certainly have.
9 yards,
I'm going to bring Navy Federal Credit Union here, and how about some free land and some tax abatement, and that's what governments do, and there's an argument you got to do it to compete.
Well, there is an argument, but my point was, and I think governments that do that to encourage relocation of business is a little bit different than established businesses. We go back to liquor industry, but established businesses that use that power that they've gained from the leverage of making a lot of money to create regulations that benefit them.
Use the government to build a wall for you.
Use the government to build a wall.
Like licensing. In Louisiana, used to be a florist, you had to have a license because you couldn't pick out flowers without having a florist license.
I think today in Florida, you can't just open up a car lot and start selling cars. You have to have a special license.
Well, you have to do certain things.
And you have to be approved that you can't sell so many cars in a period of time because then you
have to have a lot or something. Yeah, maybe that's not so bad.
Well, maybe it is.
How about it used to be you couldn't buy a casket. Except from a licensed funeral.
Oh, I know.
And these monks were building plain boxes, and they couldn't sell them without all of them becoming mortuary people. It was just nonsense. It's just anti-competitive.
And that lobby was always presented as public safety, and hygiene and security.
Hey, the dead people in these caskets might get damaged by faulty caskets. And they'd be complaining.
But isn't that the fundamental flaw in what you've been saying? The free market is never free because as you accumulate power, you abuse it. And we see it over and over in local businesses,
need people
regional business.
Constantly look out for abuses, for having to get licenses for things you don't need, for anti-competitive stuff. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the theory of the free market. It's the only thing that's ever worked.
No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but I'm saying just this laissez-faire, let the markets take care of themselves.
Right.
It doesn't work. Okay?
We haven't tried it.
Well, hey, when we let the markets take care of themselves, we had kids working 15 hours a day in sweatshops in New York City.
That is true.
Okay,
so that's a reasonable health and welfare.
Right, and you can't count on the entrepreneurs and the risk takers to all of a sudden have a moral sense of decent working conditions.
You know, you're going to run a very efficient, cheap factory if you can throw all the waste into the creek.
Yes.
That'll lower your costs pretty good. But you can't allow that.
And not have fire extinguishers and lock the doors and keep people in.
But when you go back to some of the things that we treasure for health and safety reasons, let's talk about, remember the Lochner case? Lochner is a New York case.
I do.
Where the New York decided that the bakers couldn't work more than 10 hours a day. You know what that was about?
No.
The big baker, the immigrant families would come in, and they just were, you know, they would undercut the established people because these immigrant families, the whole family would work 20 hours a day and undercut them. Yeah. So this was not about the safety of the bakers. This is about anti-competitive.
It's always presented that way.
How about minimum wage? You know how that started?
Tell me.
In a lot of countries. Minimum wage started. This was the express purpose for the origin of the minimum wage in this country. That if we need a minimum wage to keep the black people from undercutting our people. If we have a minimum wage, see, then people won't hire those undesirable people. And part of that was the whole eugenics thing, and then the undesirable people will just kind of go away.
I'm going to look into that. I'm not.
That I guarantee is true.
Solid on that?
That's solid.
Okay. All right.
That's and Ku Klux Klan was for it.
Yeah.
That's the origin of minimum wages. It was the same thing in Australia. Now that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad.
No, but I'm going to explore that in a little more depth on next week. And if you decide I'm 100% right, will you admit that? Well, we'll see. But usually, I just find myself being just brought into this logic because it's so persuasive. Like I'm nodding my head in agreement.
No, that's just factual.
Thinking,
that's just true. What is the origin of the minimum wage?
I'm going to look into it. But I'm going to ask you a question, and you won't know the answer to it.
Well, there are a lot of questions I don't know the answer to.
Why do you think that all of the caddies at the Masters wear those goofy-looking painter outfits?
I don't know. Somebody's getting a buck?
No. I'll tell you what it is. The Masters, I love the course.
Yeah.
And I love the story of Bobby Jones, but it has a very unpleasant racist past. And you know what the reason was?
No.
That if you were black and you were on the golf course, you better be wearing a white painter's outfit or you were going to go off to the jailhouse.
How do black people even get on the course?
Well,
don't they still keep women off the place?
Here's the point. No, I think they have Condoleezza Rice. They got at least a woman or two. But here's the point. That you could have a black person on the golf course, but have to be a caddy.
Right.
And you had to be careful that they didn't look like they were actually playing golf.
Right.
So you dressed him in a goofy painter's outfit.
Well,
when you look at those clothes, you think, are these people crazy? So they're preserving the
tradition of racism.
And they're very proud of it, and they talk about it. And I love the golf tournament. I ain't any question about it. And we're so proud of Bubba Watson. Isn't
that great?
What a terrific person. Just a human being. He's just a good guy. But the course itself, when you consider the way they treated people, and now we're protecting that image, that you better be in a
I don't know. Do caddies? I don't know anything about golf and don't watch it on TV. Do caddies wear different things?
Well, they don't. The golfers always wear long pants.
Right.
Always. And the caddies can wear other clothes, okay? But
aren't the caddies the ones with the big bags on their shoulder?
Well,
wouldn't that kind of a tip-off?
No, you would think so. But you think, hey, what if there's black guys out there with a bag? He might be carrying his own
now
clubs.
Tiger Woods, and when Tiger doesn't show up, the viewership goes. It's kind of flipped around now.
It has.
Tiger is so important to golf that if he doesn't show up,
but Bubba.
Everything
has a huge following.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
And a fan club, and
especially down south.
He's such a good image for sports anyway. He's got this great wife and little adopted little boy. I think he's 2 years old. It was really the entire episode was so cool because he played his third day. He didn't play quite as well. he hung in there and he hung in there. And golf is such an intense game anyway. And to hang in there over 4 days. And when you think about this, Bill, the best player who wins, he beats most of the other players by 2 to 3 strokes a day. That's the difference.
That's pretty
and
good.
if you're 12 strokes behind, I don't know where that would put you in the money list of the Masters, but you were way down if you were 12 strokes off.
Yeah, I understand that
and you're just talking about 3 strokes a day. These are the finest players in the world. That was a thrilling thing to watch him win that. But I wanted
what they're able to do with the little sticks and the balls and make them go where they want.
Yeah, it is.
That's pretty good. But is Tiger Woods, you know, and he's had back surgery and now he's 38 years old, which is, I guess, getting old even for a golfer.
No, he can play. Listen, he could.
Because he hasn't won a major in a long time, but isn't he one of the all-time greats of
Well,
golf?
yeah, but he's just behind Nicklaus in terms of majors, and he's won. I think this was an interesting story about Tiger Woods that I read, that before he turned pro, he had played in 300 golf tournaments. Either that or he had won, I don't know, some staggering amount before he ever played as a pro. And, of course, his first year at the Masters, you remember what happened there. I mean, I think he won by 16 strokes or something.
He's one of the few golfers who really looks like an athlete.
Well, he does now because he's pumped up.
Yeah.
And one of the criticisms has been is that he's pumped up and it's kind of changed the dynamics of his golf swing and stuff. But it's too esoteric in terms of these golfers because they change the slightest thing they change. But he'll come back at his age. He can come back. There's no question about that.
He looks like he's in shape.
He can come back if he can get his back right and he gets refocused. You know, that thing that happened with his family and everything, you know, it messed his head up. It was terrible.
It did.
You know, he was bigger than life until that happened. And it's a humbling
but he
thing.
still, because he dropped it, he had this back problem. He would have played in the Masters, but I guess he had back surgery.
Yeah.
And he wasn't recovered, so he had to drop out of the tournament. And the resale of the tickets immediately went, pfft. You know, like on StubHub, you can buy tickets.
Oh.
And the viewership just...
I did not know that the StubHub thing existed. I'm sure the viewership was down. I didn't realize
I got that from Frank DeFord. He said the secondary market. I don't know if it's StubHub or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's any place that sells tickets to it. Yeah. All right, I want to go to a local story.
Yeah, we need a local story.
Yes. Well, now the professor of civility and the professor of community rebuilding and camaraderie and loving one another from the career politician, Mr. Maygarden, comes this in the Pensacola News Journal: poor health blisters productivity. Yeah.
Is that wrong?
Yes, I think it is.
It is.
And I'm about to tell you why.
Okay.
All right. Yes, in theory, poor health, and in fact, poor health of the workforce decreases productivity. We didn't need an editorial to tell us that. A moron would know that. Well, everybody here is sick, coughing, smoking, and overweight. Well, I suspect that you're not doing as well with your workforce. I mean, we don't need an editorial. Okay, so here's what I'm going to tell you about the thing, all right? He apparently doesn't know anything about local athletics. None, okay? In terms of the physical fitness of our population. I'm about to tell you some of them, okay? Little League, okay? Salvation Army football, Bill Bond League, bowling, the Divot Derby, Blue Angel Marathon, serious.
It's a serious event.
And all these walks we have, the Heart Walk, Autism, the Cancer Walk. Now wait, so here's the challenge I'm making publicly. You want to know what the challenge is?
Yeah.
All right, here's the challenge. Jerry, you show up at the Fiesta Five Flags 6.2-mile run.
And when is that?
May the 3rd.
Oh, it's coming right up.
Well, he's in.
How's Jerry going to train for it?
He's in shape already.
He didn't say that.
The implication is he's in perfect health.
Oh, that's okay.
Sure. I mean, he's in perfect health. Come on out. I'll see you at the finish line. If you don't run at all, okay, I'll wave at you because I won't be fast. I promise you that. But I'm going to do it. All right. So the next time you decide to write something like this about what a poor physical fitness and health, you ought to be in perfect physical condition yourself before you start. People in glass houses shouldn't throw rocks.
Listen,
okay?
some of the great. My wife was a dancer when she was young, and she had a dance teacher who was like 80 years old, At 80, this lady wasn't much of a dancer, but she was a great dance teacher. I mean, why shouldn't you be able to comment on health? I don't think it necessarily contradicts the idea that as a community we're in poor health to say, well, we got a lot of athletes. We produce an amazing number of professional athletes.
We have athletic events here all the time.
And we have these high schools who do really well statewide. So we've got some people who are fit. But we have a lot of people who are fat.
But just this general observation about how we are not as physically fit. I'm tired of hearing it. How about, Jerry, how about something positive? Okay, how about something positive? Your comments are always highlighting the negative, ostensibly as an independent observer, but it's killing us. You're supposed to be in charge of the Chamber of Commerce.
Didn't he in the last time say it was about community building and making the community a better place?
Yeah, so now how do you
helping
do that?
people?
You just criticize the whole workforce. Oh, we're in sorry shape or this or that. So how many employees have you interviewed?
That's kind of self-evident. No, there are statistics.
Statistics.
And the statistics say, as a county, we're not very healthy. I think we have, and I don't remember it all, but it was in the
so what's your plan?
We have more small. My plan.
What's your plan?
I'm going to take care of my health and be as healthy as I can. Right. The rest of them are not going to listen to me. Maybe I'll be a role model. I doubt that.
All right, now I want to tell you why this was.
And my whole family is healthy because we, try to exercise and not eat too much.
Well, you are in great physical condition. You always have been, okay? It's important to you. Yeah, well, I mean, just saying, we're doing the best we can with it, okay? But I'm saying I'm going to get out there. I'm going to go through that walk. And I'll say, listen, you want to criticize our health? Show up. And if it takes you 3 hours to do it, you can tell everybody, listen, it took me 3 hours to do it. I'm going to try to get in better shape. All right, now,
I'm having a little problem with this because all we do on this show is criticize everybody. If I couldn't criticize people, I wouldn't have anything to say.
But we're not in charge of the Chamber of Commerce.
No, that's right. We're
Thank God we're not.
No.
Nobody would come here. All right, I want to read you this paragraph.
That's right.
I'm going to read you this paragraph because this makes even more no sense than most of this makes, okay? Our poor health ranking isn't for lack of medical knowledge. What a brilliant statement.
We have a lot of hospitals here, a lot of doctors.
Yeah, but I'm going to finish this paragraph, okay? We have top-notch medical centers in Greater Pensacola. Okay?
Yeah.
Doesn't talk about Sacred Heart's Cancer Center, right? Doesn't talk about Baptist affiliation with Mayo. Let me tell you what he talks about, which makes no sense. I'm about to show you. It makes no sense, okay? Including the Andrews Institute for Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, a world-class orthopedics facility. It has attracted national and international attention to the area for its superior medical care in orthopedics and research, and has helped secure Northwest Florida as a powerhouse for musculoskeletal treatments and research. What the hell does that have to do with with a healthy workforce? They work on you after your bones are broken. Okay, that's what they do.
Yeah,
it's an orthopedic center.
They actually do have. They do have, and I think it costs a lot of money, they do have some kind of an executive fitness deal where you can go out there and they have physical therapists and all kinds of trainers. But if you want to be in even better shape, you start going out there at 6 a.m. and they'll put you on exercise bikes and.
Well, you can make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. All right, so
this is all pretty benign to me. I don't think this is subterfuge.
You don't think this was just a shallow endorsement for Andrews?
It might be.
Yeah, I mean, just like, why not talk about what the hospitals are doing for preventative care? And our hospitals are doing a good job. If you're going to tie this whole self-righteous, thing you're doing together, tie it into something that makes some sense about people's health care, okay? There's orthopedic centers where you go when your leg's broken, all right? And they do a good job. They repair your leg. Or, what was it? RG3 came. He had to have some reconstructive surgery.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can see, if you go out there, you can see these professional athletes, these huge muscular guys.
It's fine. Yeah. It's a good facility. They're doing a good job. But what does that have to do with the whole purpose of this was to say what sorry shape all the workforce is in, which I don't believe anyway. Okay? I don't think it's objectively determined. Oh, somebody's got some statistics, and the statistics says we're not as healthy as some other county. I don't know. It doesn't impress me. Okay? No. It doesn't impress me. Because let's go talk to the people who are employing people. Let's talk to the Navy Federals. Let's talk to some people employing. How are you working? I'll bet you would find in these companies, we might even get some feedback about this, really good programs for physical health for their employees. I'll bet you
a lot of good companies do.
Sure. Why not talk about that?
Yeah.
Why not highlight the companies that are doing it?
That's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, well,
And you can get some kind of deal with, I know the Y used to have this. You can, and I think there's some reduced price. You can say to your employees, well, go up to the Y and sign up, and you get
a better
get
deal.
in a program and either get a better deal or we'll pay for it, and then you'll be healthy. And a lot of people do that for their employees.
The Y's doing a great job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Y's. Yeah.
And thanks to Mr. Studer, we're going to have a great Y.
It'll be fabulous.
It will. It's going to be good.
It will be fabulous. I think it's time for us to take a short break. In fact, it's right on the button. So we are going to take a short break now and come back. And when we come back, we're going to talk about income inequality and what we can do to remedy that terrible situation. We shall return.
For over 30 years, we've had the privilege to live and work in this great community. Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson, representing accident victims across Northwest Florida. Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson, putting our clients first in Northwest Florida for 35 years.
All right, we're back, Bob and Bill. And before we get to the explosive topic of income inequality, as articulated by our president, let's talk about one more local issue, and that is...
There's some interesting things surrounding this. This was a News Journal article from a couple of days ago, and City Councilman Charles Baer decided that when the voters approved the charter, they made a mistake. And they should have put more powers in there for the city council and kind of reduced them and allowed the city to recall the mayor. Apparently doesn't like the mayor. And then in the same article, so he was going to propose, and I guess the city council has to vote on it 2 times, and then it goes to the voters. You can't change the charter without going to the voters.
Correct.
To see if we could change the charter to bring it kind of back toward the old way with more power for the city council and less for the mayor.
Right.
But in the same article, other city councilmen said, I don't think that's a good idea. Think about 3 of them. And they didn't mention Brian Spencer, whose wife was the head of the Charter Commission.
Sure.
You know, so I can't see Brian voting for this.
Well, I think I think obviously they're independent in every respect in their thinking and their thing, except that he knows the level of work that she did and the depth of research that she did. And so I think you're right about that, but for a different reason.
Sure. And you know, people in a good marriage ought to be independent, and they can hold different ideas. You don't have to be in lockstep.
Of course.
But I think he is for the charter. I don't know that for sure. I talked to him about
the charter. It's not
the
charter's not the problem. We're in a period of transition, and there's a blogger who's always complaining about something, and one of his complaints is that the power of the mayor is appropriate under the charter. It's an abuse of power. And apparently what he was talking to is the one time the mayor exercised a veto over a resolution that had no practical effect at all.
Yeah.
But so it's abuse of power, and and that's what Maygard is saying. It's abuse. It's what we would just want to give all the power back to the city council.
Oh.
It's like, wait, you people are living about 25 years ago. We already tried that. We tried that for what, since 1932, whatever it was, and it progressively got worse every year. Every single year it got worse in terms of just one fiasco another. That city council gave away valuable leases at the port.
The same insiders always wound up with the good deals.
I mean, just embarrassingly bad decisions that were made by the city council. So the voters here are very conservative. And there was an interesting article about the charter at the time saying that the last time the charter changed, and it might have been like 39 or something, was following an economic collapse of some, where the voters said, listen, we got terrible problems because of the economy. And that's kind of what happened this time. But it's working quite well. But dissent is good. Arguing about policy is good. It's just that the city council's role has changed. And it's okay to criticize everybody. Criticize the governor, criticize the mayor, that's good. Argue your points and considerations, but you don't change the framework of the government. That really is a vast improvement. And thank goodness for the charter
apparently it's not going to. There's something that isn't in this article, but it kind of stands out, and that is this. Why does he come out with something? It gets on, and then right in the same article, it looks like it's dead on arrival. The reason is
Sunshine Law.
The Sunshine Law.
Yeah.
In Washington, in Congress, they have whips, and the whips go around and count the votes. And if they don't have the votes, a lot of times, we're not going to bring this up and get embarrassed. We don't have the votes, so we're going to wait maybe till we have the votes. He can't do that. Well, he can't go around to other council people and say, well, are you going to vote? You know, what do you think of this?
I'll give you a insight.
It's a way to do it.
I'll give you an insight in this. This is what they used to do. They would scuttle a liaison person between each city council member. And they'd say things like this. Well, here's the issue. We want you to be informed. We're talking to everybody. Here's some of the concerns. And the clever ones would get the votes lined up that way. And so then when it happened, the vote would go down. It'd be 6-7 to 2 or something. Nobody would understand, well, how do these people vote this way? They didn't discuss anything. They didn't do anything. So I asked the city manager one time. I said, why do you do that? Why do you do all this backroom stuff that you guys do all the time? He said, we don't want to embarrass the city council members because they might ask a question in public that will embarrass them. And so they use that
to get around
as a tool to get around the Sunshine Law. And I think with this city council now, you can criticize them if you want to. They're not engaged in that. I think that part of it, I think, is working well. And I think the idea of eliminating these at-large people was a good idea, not directed at either one of them. I hope they both run for office again because they're good office holders. But 7 people, that's enough.
Yeah, that's right.
We only got 50,000 people
But
here.
you get a little sense of petulance. I mean, they want the mayor to be there and listen to them, and he doesn't have to show up, and he doesn't show up. And they just seem a little petulant to me.
I think that's a good word. I think that's exactly what we're saying, from some, not from all.
Not from all.
But again, I'll go back to this. The criticism is good because it, as you've pointed out so many times, it forces the truth out. You have to test ideas with critical questions. All of that's working pretty good. I think the problem is some of them are not satisfied that the structure and the responsibilities of the city council have changed. They are a policy board.
Some of these folks are apparently going to run for mayor, aren't they?
Yeah, well, Bear's running.
He's going to run.
He's going to run. And but by the way, the News Journal article today, I think I've always been a big supporter of the News Journal, but they have some of these young reporters. They really don't know what they're doing, and so every article they write, they have to kind of weave in their own editorial view. That's going to change because the News Journal has a really fine new editor that's going to handle some of that, and they've been at a time where they didn't have an editor, and so it was kind of free-for-all down there. But this morning's article says that the mayor is raking in the cash. It's like, could you just say what the receipts are and let the viewers, let the readers.
How much cash is he raking in?
Yeah, it's like under $100,000 total for the whole campaign so far. I mean, we're talking about millions and millions being spent, and then the governor's going to spend, what, he spent $75 million being elected governor. This is a city council thing. This is the city mayor. This is no big deal. But to act like it's like this you need a cash register down there to handle all they're all publicly accounted contributions. It's like, why would you say raking in the cash? No, you have a contribution. Let the reader decide if it's raking in.
Yeah.
You don't need to be
I wonder how that compares, and I don't know, with other races at the city level, how much money...
well, we've not had a competitive race other than the previous race that we had for mayor's race.
And do you remember how much money was involved in that race?
I don't remember what the total amount was for that. I can't remember. That's a good question.
I mean, if those totals were really low, then saying raking in the cash is a colorful way.
But that's what should be in the editorial page. It shouldn't be in an article. Right. I mean, you want to make these comments.
If you want, you ought to make it factual. You could say, he's got $100,000, which the most that's ever been raised.
Yes.
That would be.
You could say it was 4 times what was raised the last time. Whatever the facts are, a newspaper reporter should report the facts. They shouldn't weave in their editorial opinions, which has happened repeatedly until we have a new publisher and we have a new editor of the paper, and that stuff is going to end. But for a time, they were just, I think, so short-staffed that a lot of this stuff just got in the paper and got done. And it was not good. Okay.
You know, government in the sunshine is a hard concept to argue with. The people ought to know what's going on. We don't want backroom deals. But isn't a sunshine law kind of an impediment, kind of a friction in the works where the councilmen can't get together and say, you know, this is what I'm going to propose. Well, why don't you change it this way, and then maybe it'll be better.
Why can't they
You still have a public vote.
Why can't they do it in the public? I've said for years that they ought to have to tell us everybody that contacts them privately. Well, who contacted you? What did they tell you? Because maybe what they're telling you is a big lie, and you're going to vote based on a big lie. I don't understand why we have all this.
I have a little bit of a problem with that. We have a right to communicate and to our elected people.
We do.
And sometimes, look what happened to the guy who, this is the guy who was running Mozilla. They have Firefox. And way back in 08 or 09, this is back when President Obama was against gay marriage.
It's not Mozilla. It was maybe it was it. Go ahead.
It is. But he was the head guy of this software company, and he'd just been appointed to be the CEO, and he was one of the originators of the software.
Wasn't it an operating system? Wasn't Mozilla an operating system? Okay. Yeah. So what about it?
So what about it is he gave $1,000, I think, to the proposition on the California ballot, since been overturned, that made the law of California that gays couldn't get married. Marriage was a man and a woman.
Yeah.
And because it was public, the people who supported that proposition say they just were subject to all kinds of ridicule and people coming to their house and a lot of crap. We have a tradition of anonymous stuff in this country. I'm not so sure that everybody, every contribution needs to be.
I think every contribution, every deal, every payment,
all right, let me ask you this question.
Every benefit, the public has a right to know it.
If you give a big contribution to the Sierra Club, do they disclose that?
I don't even know if they do or they don't.
They don't.
Well, they should. Okay.
Well, they're the kind of.
If they politically lobby.
Well,
then
the rule is they can only a certain amount of their activities.
That's a C4 deal, right?
Right. That's what they are.
Yeah. Well, there's a
and they don't have to disclose their. And they're all worked up about these Tea Party organizations who apparently the IRS doesn't like at all.
Yeah.
But lots of other organizations, liberal organizations, example the Sierra Club.
Do you know what the IRS rule was on 501c4s before they changed it?
No.
0 political activity. Then they made a policy decision, not legislatively, that you could, if it wasn't that you could do it to a de minimis extent or to a minor extent or whatever. To me, we are, as taxpayers, subsidizing, by virtue of their tax benefit, a political activity, which we shouldn't do that way. We shouldn't give them a benefit of that. I get it. My tax dollars are going so they can lobby for what they want for their special interest. It did bother me.
Kind of hard to police, because certainly the Sierra Club can lobby for issues, clean water.
They can lobby for issues.
The line between issues, supporting an issue and supporting a candidate can be very hard to discern.
Or supporting an economic interest that comes out of the issue.
Absolutely,
I think that's an excellent point. Yeah, it's more difficult. But
I mean, look at Mayor Bloomberg, former Mayor Bloomberg. Apparently, he's thrown another $50 million into the anti-gun campaign. Should he be allowed to do that?
I think it's better than the Big Gulp campaign. Remember?
Yeah. Well, I think he should. It's
it's his money.
A lot of the campaign finance laws favor the incumbents because they're really hard to comply with.
They are. They are. Well, once you get in, especially congressional races, you can't get these people out.
Right.
First of all, you only got 2 years, you know, to raise the money.
Yeah.
But no, so what do you think about $50 million? His point is we have too many people dying from guns, and we got to require more background checks.
Right.
What's wrong with that?
Well, we have too many people dying from guns. We have a lot of people who die from guns in this country, but the remedies they propose are no good.
Yeah,
They're not going to work.
What do you think? How do you think we could fix the problem? What's an idea about addressing this problem? We have too many people getting killed with guns.
One idea is you don't like this idea at all. The remedy for a bad guy with a gun is a good guy for a gun. Yeah. I think we ought to have armed people in schools, and when these nuts show up, they can be shot.
Archie Bunker, right?
No, well, but you know, but my position is that first of all, as a responsible gun owner, you should. If you're going to protect yourself with your gun, don't just buy a gun and put it in the drawer. You need training.
Of course.
You need to get yourself some training. You need to be responsible. You leave it in the drawer for somebody to steal, and you're going to have some culpability for crime and murder. Yeah. So you need to have your gun stored properly. You need to be a responsible
It's such a
gun
balancing
owner.
problem. And there was an article, by Justice Stevens, who talked about the amendment that should take the change in the Second Amendment. You know what he said? He would add the words, while serving in a militia.
Well, that would change it completely.
Right, that's what he said.
That would absolutely change it completely.
That's what he said. He said that's what it was intended to be anyway.
The right-wingers, who I am proud to count myself among, say something like this. You know what the Third Amendment is?
I forgot. What is the Third Amendment?
Quartering troops in houses.
Oh, okay.
Now, way back when this was going on, or in the memory of the people who were working on this Constitution, the British government could send their soldiers into your house, and they weren't guests who were careful with the guest towels. They would slaughter your pigs and walk off with your daughter if they could. It was a real horrible abuse. Yeah. And so what they put in there was you can't quarter troops in houses, and to go along with that, you're going to have a gun too. And so they say, we'll read them together. Yeah,
so they have to read them together. That's very interesting, Bill. Yeah. I didn't realize that. Yeah. That is very interesting.
I think the Supreme Court is dead right on the Second Amendment.
On Heller?
Yeah. What happened to Mr. Heller, where he had a legitimate reason to have a gun, he was a good guy, he was a government employee, he knew how to use guns, he used a gun on his job, you can't have a gun. Yeah. Wait a minute. All the criminals have guns. They're not following your rules. He was following the rules and made himself vulnerable. I'm glad it changed.
In our society, here at the university, whatever, how many people should not have guns?
Well,
which people?
It's a real
which
problem.
People should not have guns?
I don't mind convicted felons not having guns, or people who've demonstrated mental instability.
Guy writes a check over $500. He's convicted of a felony. Why can't he have a gun? Because he wrote a bad check?
Well, if he gets his rights restored, he can.
Well, bigger problem in Florida. But okay, so convicted felons. Who else? Right here on the campus. Would you give all these liberal professors guns out here? We have a lot of liberal professors here.
I would like to hope the liberal professors would get a lot of training and be careful with them.
Should all the students be packing in every class? I'm just asking.
I think, well, first of all, we have rules about campuses and other places where you can't have guns. They can legitimately keep guns off college campuses. It wouldn't bother me.
Isn't that government intrusion, into personal liberties and stuff?
Well, there's no constitutional right that's limitless,
Oh, I know, but isn't that pretty intrusive that if you happen to go and...
Well, what about, can you carry a gun on an airplane? You for that? You think you're going to be able to?
No, you're the one I'm trying.
Put your gun in your holster and get on United Airlines.
I said earlier that was Archie Bunker's solution to hijacking. It was arm everybody.
Well, I think reasonable limits on where you can carry a gun are okay.
Can you carry a gun in a restaurant?
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes it may do some good with it.
Okay. Should people be able to have? What do you think about open carry? Is that all right?
Boy, that's an interesting thing. Open carry is kind of scary, but in a way, it used to be, go way back when, and if you were carrying a gun, you had to carry it for all the honest world to see, as the song lyric goes. Yeah. And if you had a concealed weapon, that was bad. Now the only thing you're allowed to do is have a concealed weapon. Yeah. I'm not so sure.
Well, one of the legislative changes they're proposing is if there's some kind of emergency or something.
Open carry in an emergency situation.
That everybody ought to be carrying guns.
I don't know. Yeah. They're tough issues. But to say that only the criminals and government people can have guns is a bad idea. would you put a sign out in front of your house and say, this house is completely unprotected. We have no guns and don't even have a dog. And we have a little dog who will want to lick you, but walk right in. You know, I'd like the criminals to think, this guy may have a shotgun pointed at me, so maybe I won't get into his house.
Yeah, several. Well, but I want to talk about income inequality again and make a quick observation.
It's a great issue.
It's a great issue. That I think the Democrats, they must hire the people that the Republicans fire, because they come up with the worst wording. Like, who in their right mind would use the word income inequality, which suggests that we should all go to a communist kind of employment? It's like, why would you come up with that? Why did you come up with a fair opportunity or something? Why would you use the words income inequality? Of course, it's going to be
why is income inequality? We have apparently a more extreme level of income inequality. The rich are richer and the poor are about the same, I guess.
Yeah, but why use that term? You could put disparity in wealth. You could do something else.
I mean, that's kind of a catchy term. A lot of people don't like that. A lot of people have more money than me. Yeah. That's one of Bill de Blasio. That's one of his. But we have big income inequality in New York. Because of income inequality, these rich people pay huge amounts of taxes. They have great public facilities and they give money to schools, and all these high taxes pay for all kinds of things. But the Zuccotti Park crowd doesn't like it because it's not equal. Yeah. It's crazy. I'd like to have loads of income inequality. If Bill Gates will move to Pensacola and pay loads of taxes, come on down.
Maybe
if you've got a problem, if you're poor, you know it. If you're not healthy, you know it. If you can't get a job, you know it. How do you know about income inequality? The Democrats tell you.
Well, don't you think it's obvious when the guy drives by you with his Bentley and your 59 Chevrolet that's blowing blue smoke,
Bentleys,
that there might be something going on there?
How do we know it's worse? I mean, back in the Depression, you had people driving Duesenbergs and other people on the breadline. You had income inequality.
You know what we used to say in the car business? When I was 19, I was selling cars in Miami, and we used to talk about those people that come in with those really big, fancy cars. They were upside down in the cars in debt, So our sales manager, I worked with all Italian guys, and me, the Irish kid. I mean, I was 19, and these Italian guys, they were good at selling cars.
That's how you learned how to negotiate.
Whew, I'm telling you what, they'll run over you in a heartbeat. But anyway, they used to say about these people that come in, they're walking, they just think they're riding.
Dead.
Okay,
let me interject something. On the subject of income equality, that is an amazing irony.
All right, give it to me.
Paul Krugman is a Nobel Prize. Of course, you get Nobel Prizes if you hang out with Barbara Streisand.
No, Krugman's a fine writer. I agree with that.
Well, he is on the left edge of economists. He's a qualified economist by any means, and he writes for the New York Times, and he doesn't like income inequality. I mean, he's a Democrat. He's a lefty. Yeah. So a public institution, I think it's a CCNY, the City College of New York, hired him, and his job is really to be kind of a public face of they have an organization there. They're paying him something like $250,000 a year to be the public face of their little institute for income inequality, and they're paying him $250,000 a year. It's just, where are you in this?
He can feel it.
I wasn't talking about me. I'm talking about somebody else. I can have a lot of income.
It will allow him to appreciate the magnitude of the problem. I think it's a good decision.
It's wonderful.
It is wonderful.
Well, it's a good decision. Listen, I hate that it's a public university, but if somebody wants to pay Hillary Clinton $100,000 or $200,000 to show up and give a speech, let them. It isn't my money. Yeah. Or if they want to pay...
Why'd you pick on Hillary?
Miley Cyrus to do whatever the hell she does.
What about W?
Or anybody.
Why would anybody pay W to show up to say anything?
Pay whatever you want, LeBron, he's worth all that money. That's a free market deal. Yeah. Good. Yeah. I'm happy for him. But to hire him to oppose income inequality and give him this enormous salary, that's wonderful. I'm not saying you shouldn't take it or shouldn't be entitled to it. I just think it's amusing.
Where do you find these obscure facts that just seem to completely destroy the entire life? And we're quite happy in our position, and we're quite well grounded in it. And then you have this anecdotal stuff that just devastates us.
I read the wellspring of truth every day, which is the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
And I'm plugged into all these. I get all these right-wing emails
Yeah, they get good news.
Oh, they have great writers.
Terrible
They have
editorials.
great features.
Awful editorials. They're completely stoned when they write them, but the news coverage is excellent.
Read the editorials in the Wall Street Journal. They make so much sense.
Right. They're being written by the Republican National Committee. I mean, really, come on, you know. Have they ever written an objective one, or is it always it's a business publication. They're pro-business. They're pro, capital expansion and infusion.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's good. It's
good.
great. It's great.
What?
And they could care less about people working for
everything your man Obama does. Everything he does makes it harder to hire employees. We need more jobs. We're going to have job training and stimulus and handouts, but we're going to make it way harder to hire employees. Yeah. You got to pay them more. They're going to sue your butt off if they think they're treated unequally.
What's wrong with that?
Oh,
that's what we do.
Let's get into that. Now we've got we've got this terrible imbalance that we've talked about of 77 cents. Of course, they pay him 88 cents in the White House, and the reason for that is, well, that's complicated. It's great. So
Bill doesn't think that women are underpaid. He thinks they're paid about the same as men. It's just that it gets a little confused in the analysis.
When economists study this, they say the reason women make less. Oh, single women in urban settings make more than men. Yeah. But women, by and large, they're more likely to be caregivers. They're more likely to elect jobs with shorter hours.
More likely to be exploited by white males. Excuse me, go ahead. I'm sorry.
There is no evidence of discrimination.
None.
There isn't.
None. We just think it's that way because they're making less money.
Well,
but there's no evidence.
They're making less money because they work fewer hours.
Work fewer hours.
They are out of the workforce.
They're in the kitchen, barefooted, children. Yeah,
come on. These are decisions they make, and they don't even try to justify it with discrimination. This is at the core of it, and I think this is really good. It exposes something about your left-wingers. They say, well, even if it is their own choices, their choices are driven by vestiges of discrimination and societal pressure.
On the button. On the button.
All right, listen to this. This is good. This is from public radio, not the Wall Street Journal. Yeah. There's a lady on there talking about Social Security. She's from the Social Security Administration, and she's talking about all the statistics. And she says, well, of course, women, now they use the same rules, but women, when they retire, get less than men because they haven't earned as much, they haven't been in the workforce as long.
That's true, too.
And she threw in this. That's gender discrimination.
Pretty good evidence of it.
All right, I'll give you another statistic. I wanted to say to this lady, 90% of the people on the job are men. What are you going to do about that? That's gender discrimination. Men die before women, and women are getting that Social Security longer. Where's mine?
Yeah.
You know? It's discrimination.
There's some discrimination.
We can't accept any different outcomes. It's like kindergarten. Everybody wins. Everybody gets a participation trophy. It's crap.
And if anybody
it
talks,
sounds like Marxism.
The whole class is punished.
Right.
If anybody talks.
I got another statistic. This is a great statistic. This comes from my son.
We may be running out of time, but go ahead.
Okay.
You got time.
This comes from my son's eye. There was a study done in class, and the class could vote where instead of getting individual grades, they'd average the grades.
Sure.
The average grades, of course, went down.
Oh, yeah.
That's life in your socialist society that Obama's trying to stick us with.
That's a classic illustration of that, and I think probably completely destroys every argument that the progressives have. I mean, that's such a powerful point.
The progressive arguments, by and large, fall over on their own weight. They make no sense. I think we got to go.
We are not going to be here next week. We'll be here in 2 weeks, and we welcome your calls and comments. Certainly, we don't accept constructive criticism.
Yes, we do.
Well, we don't pay any attention to it if we get it. So we'll see.
We have the option of paying attention.
We have the option of paying attention to it. I look at all the constructive criticism. Bill refuses to consider it. We'll be back and look forward to seeing you then.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh.